The moon has moved into Capricorn today, and if you have been tracking the astrological sequence of this month at all, you will recognize this shift as significant. After the emotional intensity of the lunar eclipse, after the disruptive clarity of the Venus-Uranus alignment, after the expanded directional orientation of the Sagittarius moon over the last 2 days, the moon moving into Capricorn on March 12th represents a specific and important transition in the cycle. The energy is no longer asking you to feel, to process, or to orient. It is asking you to build. Understanding what this means for you today requires a clear picture of what Capricorn actually represents in the zodiac and what a lunar transit through this sign tends to produce in the lived experience of the people moving through it. Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, a cardinal earth sign ruled by Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, time, and the relationship between effort and result. Within the symbolic architecture of the zodiac, Capricorn represents the principle of mastery through sustained effort, the understanding that meaningful achievement is not produced by inspiration alone, but by the patient, consistent application of directed work over time. The symbol of Capricorn is the sea goat, an ancient mythological creature that moves between the depths of the ocean and the heights of the mountain. That image carries something essential about the sign: the capacity to operate effectively in both the emotional depths and the most demanding external terrain, always oriented toward the summit. Saturn's rulership of Capricorn means that this sign carries Saturnian qualities throughout its expression: a seriousness about what matters, a respect for the relationship between cause and effect, an understanding that the structures you build are only as strong as the foundation you give them, and a natural orientation toward the long game rather than immediate gratification. Where Sagittarius fire seeks the horizon and expands toward possibility, Capricorn earth descends into the actual terrain and begins the work of building something real within it. When the moon transits Capricorn, which happens for roughly 2.5 days each month, the emotional body takes on this Saturnian quality. Your instinctual orientation shifts toward responsibility, toward concrete progress, toward the practical dimension of the directions and decisions that your emotional processing has been producing. The desire to feel through things decreases. The desire to do something about them increases. Patience with vagueness and inaction becomes noticeably shorter. The question that the Capricorn moon brings to the foreground is not what do you feel or what do you want, but what are you actually building, and are you taking the steps that build it? In the context of March 12th specifically, in the wake of the concentrated astrological activity that has characterized this month so far, the moon entering Capricorn carries heightened relevance. The total lunar eclipse earlier in the month set a profound clearing process in motion. Lunar eclipses, particularly blood moon eclipses with their quality of deep culmination, do not produce change by themselves. What they produce is the clearing of what was obstructing change, the emotional residue, the comfortable ambiguities, the rationalizations that made staying in misaligned situations feel more reasonable than the evidence warranted. The eclipse created space. It surfaced what had been running below awareness and held it in the foreground long enough for genuine acknowledgement. The Venus-Uranus alignment that followed delivered a rapid revaluation of desire and relationship, a Uranian disruption of settled patterns in the domains Venus governs. The sudden clarity about what you genuinely want versus what you have been going through the motions of wanting, the recognition of which connections are alive with mutual genuine investment and which have been coasting, all of that was Venus-Uranus doing its specific and characteristically abrupt work. The Sagittarius moon over March 10th and 11th provided the expanded perspective and directional orientation that followed the clearing and the revaluation. It illuminated the longer horizon, activated the forward pull, and gave the processing of the last several weeks a directional shape, an emerging sense of not just what is not working, but where the path forward is actually heading. The Capricorn moon today is the next step in that sequence, and it is the step that matters most for actual change in the real structure of your life. Everything that came before it, the clearing, the revaluation, the directional orientation, was preparatory. The Capricorn moon is where preparation meets the demand for concrete action. The specific things you may be noticing today are worth naming carefully, because they are the Capricorn moon's influence expressing itself in your moment-to-moment experience. A stronger focus on responsibilities, not in a burdensome sense, but in a clarifying one. The Capricorn moon tends to make visible the gap between what you are actually doing with your time and energy and what the genuine priorities of your current life phase require. The clarity that the eclipse and the preceding days produced has established what matters. The Capricorn moon is now applying the question of whether your actual daily behavior is aligned with what matters. That question is not comfortable, but it is productive. The discomfort of seeing the gap between your stated priorities and your actual allocations of time and energy is the Capricorn moon doing its essential function, not to shame you, but to make the misalignment visible enough to be corrected. Clarity about what needs to change in practical terms. The eclipse cycle and the Venus-Uranus activation produce clarity, primarily at the level of inner knowing. The recognition of what was genuinely aligned and what was not, the directional sense of where the path is heading, the honest internal acknowledgement of what had been running past its useful season. The Capricorn moon translates that inner knowing into the practical domain. The question becomes specific. Given what you now know, what actually needs to change in the concrete structure of your daily life, your commitments, your time allocation, your professional direction, your relational arrangements? The abstraction of knowing becomes the specificity of actionable change. The answers to these questions are more available today than they have been in the preceding days, because the Capricorn moon is providing the pragmatic lens through which the inner clarity of the last week becomes translatable into actual steps. If you sit with the question of what specifically needs to change, not in an overwhelming sense, not all at once, but what is the single most essential practical change that the recent weeks of processing have identified, the Capricorn moon will support a clear and grounded answer. A desire to organize plans and establish structure around the direction that has been becoming clearer. The Sagittarius moon pointed the direction. The Capricorn moon wants the map, the timeline, the concrete sequence of steps. If you have been holding a direction in your awareness as a felt sense or a general orientation without translating it into specific practical terms, today that translation feels both possible and necessary. The Capricorn moon's Saturn-ruled influence brings with it the capacity for exactly this kind of structural thinking about how intentions become reality through the patient assembly of specific, concrete actions. Less patience for situations that lack structure or produce ongoing uncertainty without resolution. This is Capricorn's cardinal quality, the initiating force of an earth sign that is done with deliberation and ready to commit to construction. The situations in your life that have been held in an unresolved state, the commitments that have been half-made without full follow-through, the arrangements that have been proceeding without clear terms, these will feel more uncomfortable today under the Capricorn moon's influence. The discomfort is appropriate and directional. It is pointing you toward the resolution that these situations require, and the Capricorn moon is providing the pragmatic orientation to actually achieve that resolution rather than simply feeling the discomfort of its absence. The Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which has been a significant presence throughout this month's astrological sequence, is worth addressing in the context of the Capricorn moon's call to action. The Capricorn moon wants structure and concrete commitment. Mercury retrograde advises care around formal agreements and communication-heavy commitments. These two influences can seem to be pulling in different directions, but the calibration is more specific than a simple contradiction. The Capricorn moon is fully supportive of internal structural work today, of establishing your own clarity about the concrete steps required, of organizing your thinking about how the direction ahead will be practically built, of making the internal commitment to the course of action that the recent weeks of clarity have identified. Mercury retrograde's caution applies primarily to the external formalization of that commitment. The signed agreements, the public announcements, the complex negotiations that require precise communication and would be difficult to revise if misunderstood. Think of today as the day you build the foundation internally and prepare the groundwork for the construction that begins when Mercury turns direct. The Capricorn moon and Mercury retrograde together are creating conditions under which the planning and the internal commitment can be thorough and genuine, without the risk that the external execution carries while communication conditions are still running at retrograde sensitivity. Mercury will turn direct in the coming days, and when it does, the structural clarity you develop today will have a clean medium through which to express externally. The combination of Capricorn moon clarity and Mercury direct movement in the very near future is actually a powerful sequence for getting something genuinely important off the ground in a deliberate and well-founded way. Use today to build the internal foundation that the external action will stand on. Within the broader astrological pattern of March, the Capricorn moon on March 12th marks a specific shift in the dominant quality of the month's energy. The eclipse and its aftermath were primarily about revelation, surfacing what had been below awareness and making it impossible to ignore. The Venus-Uranus alignment was about disruption and revaluation, breaking open settled patterns in the domain of desire and relationship. The Sagittarius moon was about directional orientation, activating the forward pull and illuminating the longer horizon. The Capricorn moon is about manifestation, the beginning of the process by which what was revealed, revalued, and oriented toward becomes real through disciplined, sustained action. Saturn, as the ruling planet of Capricorn, governs not just structure and discipline, but also the dimension of time, specifically the relationship between consistent effort over time and meaningful result. The Capricorn moon activates an understanding of this relationship that is felt rather than merely understood. The sense that what you are building now, through the specific choices and actions of this period, will be visible and significant over a longer time frame. That what you begin here, with the care and the foundation work that Capricorn demands, has the potential to produce something genuinely durable. Not just a temporary response to the eclipse's disruption, but a rebuilt structure that reflects your genuine priorities and genuine direction more accurately than what it is replacing. This Saturnian dimension of the Capricorn moon is particularly relevant in the wake of an eclipse cycle, because eclipses clear away what was built on foundations that were not genuine, the arrangements sustained by habit rather than genuine choice, the commitments maintained by inertia rather than genuine investment, the structures of daily life that reflected who you were at an earlier point rather than who you are now. After that clearing, the Capricorn moon's building energy is not just an astrological mood. It is the natural next step, the phase in which the cleared ground receives new construction that is more deliberately chosen and more accurately aligned with the current genuine state of your desires and direction. The practical orientation for today runs through one primary question. Given everything that the last several weeks have revealed, what is the first concrete thing you need to build or establish? Not the complete structure, not the finished building, the first course of foundation stones, the initial concrete step that begins translating the inner knowing into outer reality. The Capricorn moon does not demand completion. It demands beginning, specifically, a beginning that is honest about what it is building toward and willing to do the actual sequential work that building requires. That beginning might look like a written plan, taking the direction that the Sagittarius moon illuminated and translating it into specific actionable steps with a realistic timeline. It might look like a commitment made to yourself about a change in your daily structure, a new habit established, an old pattern formally discontinued, a reallocation of time and energy toward what the eclipse cycle identified as genuinely aligned. It might look like a preliminary conversation with someone relevant to the direction you are moving toward, not the formal commitment that Mercury retrograde still advises waiting on, but the initial real contact that begins building the foundation of what comes next. Whatever form the beginning takes, The Capricorn moon is providing today the specific quality of grounded, practical orientation that makes beginnings feel less like leaps and more like next steps. The eclipse revealed the necessity. The Venus-Uranus alignment disrupted the settled picture enough to make the necessity feel possible to act on. The Sagittarius moon illuminated the direction. The Capricorn moon is providing the Earth energy, the Saturn-ruled focus, and the cardinal initiating force that transforms what has been prepared into what actually begins. Some lunar transits are primarily reflective in their quality. The Pisces moon inviting dissolution and surrender, the Cancer moon drawing attention inward toward emotional safety and memory, the Scorpio moon taking awareness into the depths of what is hidden. Other lunar transits are primarily active, providing not just the felt sense of a direction, but the practical orientation and grounded energy required to begin moving in that direction in concrete ways. The Capricorn moon is one of the most reliably action-oriented lunar transits in the zodiac cycle. It does not encourage processing, it does not support extended deliberation, and it does not reward the comfortable maintenance of existing structures that have been identified as no longer serving the genuine direction. What it rewards is commitment and follow-through. What it supports is the patient, sequential, grounded work of building something real. March 12th is the day in this month's significant astrological sequence when the processing phase ends and the building phase begins. The clearing is done. The revaluation has been completed. The direction has been illuminated. The Capricorn moon is the starting gun for the construction that follows, for the real, practical, structural work of building a version of your life that more accurately reflects what the last several weeks of profound astrological activity has revealed about your genuine priorities and authentic direction. Take one concrete step today. Not a plan for a step, not a commitment to consider a step, an actual step, small enough to be genuinely executable, real enough to leave a mark in the structure of your life. The Capricorn moon will support it. Saturn's influence will reward it with the beginning of genuine momentum, and the sequence of what follows will be built on the foundation of what you begin today. The ideas have been sufficient. The processing has been thorough. The direction is clear. The Capricorn moon is asking you to build it. Begin.